Close your eyes. You're standing at Hadrian's Wall. It's January. The wind is cutting straight through you, ice cold, relentless, carrying the bite of the North Sea. Every step feels like a fight. And you're wearing iron armor. Not wool, not fur, iron. Armor that's been sitting outside all night. The moment it touches your skin, the cold hits you instantly. All over your body, all at once, and you don't get to go inside. You have 4 hours of guard duty ahead of you. But here's what makes this even harder to believe. Most of these soldiers had never seen snow before in their lives. They came from the sun-baked deserts of Syria, the scorching coastlines of North Africa. Cold like this was completely foreign to them. And yet, they held the line. So how did they do it? How did the Roman army function, day after day, in conditions that should have broken them? Let's look at the system behind it. The biggest problem wasn't morale. It wasn't motivation. It was the armor itself, the Lorica Segmentator. That iconic segmented iron plate armor was built for the Mediterranean. In northern winters, it became a serious liability. Iron conducts heat away from the body roughly 25 times faster than wool. A soldier suiting up on a January morning wasn't just uncomfortable. He was losing body heat fast enough that without the right underlayers, hypothermia could set in within hours. And hypothermia is deceptive. It doesn't arrive as sharp pain. It creeps in as fatigue, as confusion, as fumbling hands and slow reactions. Exactly the things that get soldiers killed. Roman commanders understood this, even without modern physiology to explain it. And the archaeological record from northern frontier sites shows that their response was far more sophisticated than simply throwing a cloak on top. Directly beneath the lorica, soldiers wore the subarmalis, a thick, padded garment somewhere between a heavy tunic and a quilted jacket. It cushioned the impact of the armor in combat, yes. But in winter its real job was insulation, a thermal barrier between iron and flesh. On top of that went a standard wool military tunic. Wool was the ancient world's best natural insulator. It holds heat, even when wet. It breathes, preventing the kind of sweat buildup that actually accelerates heat loss. And it's tough enough to survive the daily punishment of military life. That layered combination, subarmalis, wool tunic, then iron, kept soldiers functional in conditions that would have been immediately dangerous without it. If one piece of evidence reshaped how we think about life on Rome's northern frontier, it's a single letter. Found at Vindolanda, a Roman fort just south of Hadrian's Wall. The letter is a soldier writing home to his family. Among the things he asks for, socks. Not weapons, not food, socks. And with them, underpants and sandals. It's such a small human moment, but it tells us a great deal. Socks weren't standard military issue. If they were, he wouldn't need to ask. He asked specifically because he knew what he was up against, and he knew socks were the difference between coping and suffering. The request for sandals alongside them suggests he was wearing socks inside his open caliga, adapting standard issue footwear to conditions it was never designed for. The caliga was built for the Mediterranean, open, well-ventilated, great for long marches in the heat. In a northern British winter, it was almost dangerous, exposing the foot to cold, wet ground and the real risk of frostbite. So soldiers improvised. They wore socks. They found enclosed boots, calci. That covered the foot and ankle. The archaeological record confirms that the Roman military allowed this kind of seasonal adaptation rather than mandating one universal solution, regardless of conditions. Pragmatism over rigidity. Beyond clothing, the army's most powerful winter tool was institutional. The practice of hibernia, winter quarters, restructured the entire campaign year around one simple reality. Winter in the north was not campaign season. Mud made roads impassable. Snow sealed mountain passes. Rivers burst their banks. An army that tried to fight through a northern winter risked not just discomfort. It risked being unable to move, unable to resupply, unable to fight at all. Rome's answer wasn't retreat. It was preparation. Permanent legionary fortresses. the castra stativa, were chosen specifically for their ability to sustain a force through winter. Stone or timber barracks, stockpiled granaries, heated bathhouses, defensive walls that required fewer men to hold. These weren't just military bases. They were winter survival systems. The Hippocaust heating system was central to this. The same technology warming the bathhouses also ran beneath the floors and through the walls of the barracks. Soldiers sleeping on a radiant heated floor in northern Britain were, by any ancient standard, remarkably well housed. The average civilian had nothing like it. Supply was equally critical. A full legion, 6,000 men plus support, needed continuous provisions through months when roads were difficult and foraging was impossible. Roman campaign planning accounted for this from the start. Winter quarters positions were chosen with supply routes and regional agriculture in mind. The cold weather clothing system extended well beyond what soldiers wore under their armor. The sagum, a heavy rectangular wool cloak, could be worn over the armor used as a blanket or laid on the ground as a sleeping mat. For severe cold, there was the birus, a hooded wool cape adding protection to the head and neck. Then there's the fascinating case of trousers. In the early empire, trousers were a barbarian garment. Roman soldiers did not wear them. Official dress meant a tunic and bare legs. And yet, by the later empire, sculptures and manuscripts clearly show Roman soldiers in the north wearing trousers. What happened? The same thing that kept happening throughout the archaeological record of frontier service. Soldiers posted to cold climates simply started wearing trousers because survival demanded it. The system initially looked the other way. Then it quietly accommodated the change. Eventually, official dress reflected what soldiers on the ground had already figured out. Unofficial individual adaptation, followed by institutional acceptance. It's a pattern that shows up again and again. The Roman military wasn't infinitely flexible, but it was pragmatic. When Mediterranean norms stopped working, the system found ways to move on. None of this made the Roman army invincible against the cold. Iron armor still stiffened. Fingers still went numb, reducing grip strength and the precise coordination that Roman tactics depended on. Leather straps stiffened. Bowstrings lost their snap. Cold genuinely degraded fighting effectiveness in measurable ways. That's exactly why Hibernia existed. Not just for comfort, but to preserve capability. A legion resting in heated winter quarters through November was a significantly sharper fighting force come March than one that had been grinding through the cold the entire time. When winter operations were unavoidable, commanders adapted. Ration allowances went up. Cold burns more calories. Rest stops were built into marches to prevent accumulated cold stress. Foot care was enforced at unit level because feet were the critical vulnerability. Frostbite and cold injuries appear in Roman military medical records, and the army treated them with the same systematic approach it brought to combat wounds. Warm the affected area, protect it from further exposure, maintain nutrition and hydration. Effective treatment, even without understanding the underlying physiology. Life on Hadrian's Wall in January was hard. No amount of preparation made it otherwise. But what's remarkable isn't that Roman soldiers suffered in the cold. It's that they built a system to manage it. Layered clothing, seasonal footwear, heated barracks. Institutional planning that worked around winter rather than ignoring it. And perhaps most tellingly, when individual soldiers found solutions the system hadn't thought of yet. Wearing socks, adopting trousers, pulling on local boots, the army eventually made those solutions its own. That's what kept the Roman frontier running. Not brute endurance, but the relentless, practical habit of turning a problem into a system. From Scotland to Mesopotamia, the same order, held for centuries. What surprised you most? Leave a comment below. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. See you next time.